right, we're back with method argument from logical reasoning by type 2, and we're looking at question 17. So we have opponent of offshore oil drilling. The projected benefits of drilling new oil wells in certain areas in the outer continental shelf are not worth the risk of environmental disaster. The oil already being extracted from these areas currently provides only 4% of our country's daily oil requirement, and the new wells would only add 0.5%. All right, so now the proponent of offshore oil drilling. Don't be ridiculous. You might just as well argue that new farms should not be allowed, since no new farm could supply the total food needs of our country for more than a few minutes. All right, so what is our conclusion? We have, or not our conclusion, our argument. So we have the opponent is saying that the projected benefits are not worth the risk of environmental disaster. And why that is that we only have, it's only providing 4% of our country's daily oil requirement. Wow, that is a bad line. All right, so basically it's not worth the risk because we're not getting enough to satisfy our country, even our country's daily oil requirement. And the proponent is saying, don't be ridiculous. So essentially calling this conclusion ridiculous, that it's not worth the risk. And it brings in another example saying that we shouldn't bring in new farms because one farm is not going to help for a few minutes, provide enough food for more than a few minutes. So basically providing an example that's meant to be similar to the one before to show why the conclusion is bad. So going into it, we have A, offering evidence in support of drilling, okay, that is more decisive than is the evidence offered by the drilling opponent. Is the proponent bringing in new evidence? No, they're just bringing in an example that's meant to be similar to the one proposed. So we don't have more decisive evidence. B, claiming that the statistics cited as evidence by the drilling opponent are factually inaccurate. No, the proponent never says that the numbers are inaccurate. If anything, the proponent is agreeing because it's comparing 4% of our country's daily oil requirement to total needs of our country for a few minutes. So now, C, pointing out that the drilling opponent's argument is a misapplication of a frequently legitimate way of arguing. Again, we have to ask ourselves first, does this happen? Pointing out that the drilling opponent's argument is a misapplication of a legitimate way of arguing. Is the proponent of oil, person two, saying that this is an argument, you're just not using it in the right context? No. D, citing as parallel to the argument made by the drilling opponent, an argument in which the conclusion is strikingly unsupported. So I like this because, again, we're bringing in an alternative example that's meant to be similar, so a parallel example, and it's showing why the conclusion is bad. D's looking pretty good. E, proposing a conclusion that is more strongly supported by the drilling opponent's evidence than is the conclusion offered by the drilling opponent. Is the proponent bringing in new evidence that is more supported than, or is the proponent trying to say that the opponent has evidence that is like proves why they should be drilling? No, it's just a counterexample that's meant to be parallel. So D is our answer.